Welcome to another episode of Prepper Talk Radio, radio for the ready-minded, the podcast for the prepared, with your hosts, Scott, Shane, and Paris. We are here tonight. We are back. We are live in a living color, as they say, or as they used to say back in the day. Anyways, we're super excited to bring to you a fresh, cool episode. I'm going to talk a little bit about winter preps today, things that you can do to be ready and prepared as winter comes on and is headed towards us. Like it's coming fast, so we need to get ready for it. Wanted to just remind everybody about our good friends over at Patriot Packs hand warmers. These guys are all American made, American owned. We know the owners. We had them on the show. Actually, we did an episode with him. Probably last year, even towards the beginning of this year. Anyways, I think it was in the January era. Anyways, we did a great thing with him. He's created these hand warmers that are competitors with the more popular ones that most of you know and see probably all around Walmart and other places. But go to Patriot US. It's USPatriotPacks.com/Prepper Talk. Is that right, Scott?
Correct.
That's the website.
PatriotPacks.com/Prepper Talk.
/Prepper Talk. And you can get a deal on these hand warmers. These are going to be the hand warmers you're going to have coming into winter to keep your hands warm. You can stick them in your socks. You can stick them in your shoes. You can stick them in your gloves. You can stick them anywhere you want, really. And they got a bunch of other options too coming. So go check them out there. Support the show and support our good friends over at Patriot Packs. Without that, guys, how you guys doing? How you feeling? Taking a little break here.
Always good. Yeah.
I'm alive.
That's important. You're alive and kicking.
I'm alive. There's a lot to do. It's crazy because it's, we're in the holiday season. We just had Halloween. We're on our way to Thanksgiving. Christmas is going to be right around the corner. Then New Year's. And then wow, we're in 2026. Where the crap did 2025 go? And dude, everything is speeding up.
Yeah, I was telling my wife today, I said, I can't believe we're almost halfway through November. And it's crazy. Especially, I mean, I every year, this time of the year is really busy for me because of open enrollment. I do health insurance for Medicare eligible individuals, and this is open enrollment for them. And it's just a really busy time. That's why last week we kind of had to do take a break. Scott, you weren't feeling well. Hopefully you're feeling better tonight.
Yeah,
I was in an airplane. So Shane was the only one that was able to be available. And we're like, you know what, let's just take a break and see where we come back to next week.
Yeah, we got hit with a cold, sickness, disgustingness when we went on our family vacation, and I lasted quite a while, and then all of a sudden it hit me, and I'm like, I almost made it. Right.
Yeah, you didn't
have more zinc. Should have had more vitamin D. I got a whole list. Right. But yeah, all the winter prep stuff. That's the one thing I think most of us I failed on. I didn't start taking enough supplements to kind of be ready. And that was not ready-minded of me. So, yeah. Thankfully, doing better now.
Awesome.
Got to load up on that vitamin C, I guess, right?
The other thing, too, is vitamin D. Vitamin D as well. One of the things that not a lot of people realize is how important vitamin D is to the whole thing. So, by the way, speaking of vitamin D, if you go to preppertalkradio.com/goodlife, you can check out a great vitamin D supplement that's there. And that's got, when you're wearing a lot of clothes, the sun doesn't hit your skin. And because the sun doesn't hit your skin, you usually have a low vitamin D in your system. And that's a huge cause of a lot of ailments. So something very important to have in your system as well is vitamin D.
Well, D3 with K2, vitamin C, zinc. Zinc is what kept me from getting it for as long as I did. And then I forgot to take my zinc for a few days. And I think that's kind of part of the problem. Vitamin B, iron, vitamin E, also take probiotics, fish oil, and magnesium, especially during the winter, because we're not getting as much of those as we do during the summer months. But that's my health check. So definitely check out that link on our website. But yeah, Oh, so I just put in another order.
Obviously, in the winter, right, we tend to stay indoors. At least here in Utah, it gets pretty cold here, and it's always nice to to be comfortable and warm. But get out, get uncomfortable. There's no reason you can't go hiking. Just dress appropriate for it, right? Get out
Yeah.
and exercise. It's always obviously a little different than other seasons, but just got to be prepared for it, and that's what we're talking about: getting prepared for winter, getting for the cold, so we don't get sick, right? I mean, that's a big part about it, is getting outside, getting in the sun, watch the sunrise, watch the sunset, instead of being inside on your couch and being comfortable, right? That is an enemy, right? Being comfort is an enemy,
It's
and
funny how many people take winter off from doing things, right?
exercise, eating
We're
right,
so
because it's
used
the
to,
holidays, right?
it's cold outside. I'll just go inside and relax. And then everyone's got to shed all the winter weight for their summer bod, right? You don't need to live that way.
Yeah, exactly, and that's on my list to talk about today. Is part of winter preps, at least here in Utah, is the holidays, right? Thanksgiving, New Year's, Christmas. We tend to, of course, I'm speaking for myself. My own mindset is, it's the holidays. To sit back, relax. You don't have to, you take a break from working out because there's snow in the mountain. All different kinds of excuses, right? But that's all
that and
they
your
are.
diet.
Excuses. Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're like, well, I got to eat for Thanksgiving. I got to eat for
Mhm.
Christmas. Well, the funny thing is that well, of course, your diet starts getting ruined as soon as Halloween hits because you got all that candy to go through. Well, I mean, you don't have to. You can put it in the oval file, but once you realize that Thanksgiving is one meal and it should be good because it should be mashed potatoes and turkey, and that's all healthy stuff. So it should be keep going. The only thing is that if you have too much pumpkin pie or
It's
if you
portion
let
control.
Leftovers.
We all lose our freaking mind and we eat 2 plates that are serving plate size instead of regular plate size.
Yeah. And I think it's okay, on Thanksgiving, on certain days, but if you let it drag out and just do that over and over again, because like I say, I got leftovers. I hate to see them go to waste. That's that's my mindset, right? I'd rather eat them than throw them away. But I'm working on changing my mindset to say, you know what, rather than overeat, I'm just gonna, and nobody else is eating them. I'm not. I'll just throw them away, right? So it is about mindset. It's about attitude and such.
Can it, my man? Our good friend Sarah Thrush, Peelies and Petals.
Yep. Put it in the
She
can.
just did
put it in the jar.
a live stream today about canning and how she's tracked her numbers for the year, and she saved over $12,000 by buying everything in season when it's cheapest.
Yep.
And canning it. And she gave one of the examples. She bought 2 pounds of beans, pressure cooked it, canned it, and now she has, I think, 20 or 30 like 12-cent bottles, basically full. Like it's 12 cents for that versus you go to the store, it's like $1.80 for a can of beans. And it's just like, oh my gosh, right? Save money, cans, preserve your food. Take the bones from the turkey, take the vegetables, turn it into a good broth, can that sucker. Like rotate that, ration it out.
Yep.
Don't eat it all that week. The other problem is Christmas meals. What do you do between Christmas and New Year's? That's that period of time. Do you guys know Michael McIntyre? He's a UK comedian. Dude, it's so funny because he talks about that week between Christmas and New Year's, and it's like nobody knows what time it is, what day it is, what's going on. It's like this weird voodoo, I don't know what's going on with you week. And he's like, is it Monday? Is it Tuesday? I don't know. Does the post come? The post doesn't come. Does it come? Are they open or are they closed? Or like, what's happening today? Is the trash bin coming? Or like all these different things. He's like, are the stores open? Or are they closed? It's Boxing Day. What are we doing? Right. And he's like, you just end up lying on the couch, eating tons of food, getting fatter, more out of shape, right? Causing more problems. And yeah, we've got to curb the craziness. If you look at the screen, you guys can see I should not be the one talking about this because these two gentlemen are fit compared to me. I'm fat, right? I'm working on it, but I'm not there yet. But it's like self-control is hugely important right now this time of year. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Obviously, with the it gets darker, because because of the season, but also daylight savings time gets darker in the evening, so we tend to stay home and overeat, oversleep. It's nice for some of us to stay in bed a little too long, and then also with the holidays, I like to give, tend to overspend instead of, it's a justification rather than saving. And of course, all of my gifts are typically preparedness based, right?
Mhm.
And I don't care what the wife says, that's what I'm doing, right? That's what I do for my kids. They might think it's a lame gift in the moment, but it'll pay off eventually, right? So, but yeah, some of the comments here, getting out in the cold triggers, built antibodies. It's, the cold plunges are super popular right now, and I hear they're actually overrated, right? You don't have to actually cold plunge. Just turning your shower to cold before you get out, you get 80-90% of the benefits. But yeah, being out in the fresh air, getting out of the house, and I'm just reading some of these comments here. Yeah, we tend to snack more when we're stuck in the house. I absolutely find that true, especially late at night when we shouldn't be eating after 6 o'clock or so, depending on what time you go to bed. But yeah, a lot of things that if I bring to my mind and I remember them, then I won't be finding myself standing in the kitchen, being feeling snacky, right?
Yeah. All right, so let's talk. What do we do right now? Because towards the end of the show, I have this really exciting feeling that Shane's going to drop a curveball on winter topics, which I'm hoping.
Yeah,
for.
of course.
But let's talk. Okay, let's talk practical. What are we needing to do to prep for winter right now? Like bags, cars,
right,
house check. Like what are? Let's go through the list real quick. Give everybody the goods they came for, and then we'll go awry.
I think
instead of a
I think one thing I'm thinking about right now is that my sprinkler system, because we have snow and we're coming to that time when we can get, even before snow even really sticks, we get really cold evenings, and you don't want to have ice in your irrigation pipes, and you don't want to have water in there that's expanding. So I need to shut off my water, my irrigation water anyways. And last time we had Peelies and Pedals on, she said that you should go through your house and look at any exposed pipes that you might have that have even the smallest little place can burst. And that's what burst in her house and cost, I think it was $30,000 or $40,000 in damage to her house.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just say, go through, make sure your house is winterized. One thing is I'm thinking of is all the pipes in my irrigation, all the pipes maybe in my house. Just make sure that all those things are taken care of and winterized. So that was my first of several things that I could bring to the show today. But that was my first one that I wanted to kind of say.
Yeah, absolutely. And once temperatures get down, near freezing, you can typically, the lows at night, you can typically just shut that off, and your grass is going to be fine. Mm-hmm. So yeah, no worries if it gets a little dry. The cold temperatures are putting it into a type of, I guess, hibernation. That's not the right word, but yeah, obviously when temperatures start to change, I start to, look at my vehicles and change what I have in them, right? Rotate the summer stuff out, put the winter stuff in, and make sure I have, the tire chains are in there. Got my traction boards, a shovel. I've got, cold weather gear. Change my water, or put fresh water in my my water tank. It's going to freeze, but I got a 5-gallon tank in there, so it's less likely to freeze than just individual bottles.
Yep.
But yeah, it will end up freezing solid with our cold temps here. So that's kind of the first place that I start.
Well, isn't there a I don't know how to necessarily flush out the windshield wiper fluid, but that's something that if it gets too cold in certain areas, I think you need to have windshield wiper fluid that's more freeze resistant, and they do make that.
Definitely.
So
Yeah.
that's definitely something to do for your car. And then, especially if you live in an area where there is snow, make sure you have a set of chains that you have in your car carry. Because I don't carry chains during the summer months in the fall, but in the winter months, I definitely have chains in my trunk, and I have a set of chains for both cars. So I
Yeah.
would highly recommend those types of winterizations as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be really dangerous if you get stuck in your car in the snow when it's really cold and you run out of gas, or you can't keep your vehicle running. Having a secondary heating source for your car as well as for your house, Mike, and we'll get to that as well. But plenty of stories back east when blizzard comes in, a nor'easter, and people get stuck on the freeway in the snow. I mean, this happened in the past couple of years, and it can be life-threatening. And so if you just have that mindset wherever you go, especially if you on a longest drive, or there's some kind of risk of getting stuck, to be able to be prepared to stay in your car and be stuck there for an extended period of time.
So that means having food, having some extra water bottles that aren't there. One thing I do is I keep a couple of wool blankets in my trunk and in the back of my car. So, I don't know if you have the resources to have a heater buddy heater in every car, but definitely have wool blankets, because those can keep you warm and nice and toasty, especially if you have a couple of these handy dandy hand warmers to go along with it.
Well, there's this cool hand warmer. I want to show this one off too. Here's another one. This is one of our ones from Survival Frog. You guys can save, I think it's 10% over on their website using code PrepperTalk10. But I like this because it's a battery pack, right? We're always carrying tons of digital crap. It's a battery pack that if you push this little button here, it turns into a heater, a hand heater. So you can heat up those. Ooh, that's good. It's already starting to warm up. Heat up those extremities. But yeah, this is cool. It's little Survival Frog. It's called the Quick Heat Hand Warmer Pro. If you guys want to check that out, make sure you use the promo code PrepperTalk10. But in your car, definitely get the wool blankets. I like what Field Tac says here. Where is the 4 extreme cold mummy bags, military grade? I've got those in my house. I don't know why I haven't thought about throwing a couple of those in the car, but yeah, that's brilliant, right? I'm going to do that, but also I like he's got extra safety lights, pemmican water, or pemmican, not pemmican water, hand warmer packs, of course. But yeah, the more simple stuffs, the safer you're going to be, right? Because if something goes sideways and you don't have it, you're going to wish you did.
Interesting. So what else did I see here? Of course, Mike comments on good tires. Yeah, if you don't have good tires, obviously chains are important for me, for where I go. If you're going over a mountain pass, you kind of really need to have some chains in there. But to have good all-terrain, there's all-weather tires and there's all-terrain tires. If you have a car, yeah, you're going to want all-weather tires. If you have an SUV or a truck, something you can actually get all-terrain tires. Some are oriented better for better snow performance. Some are more for mud or road or such. But with some do a little bit of research, you can actually get a really good all-terrain tire that still does extremely well in the snow, and that's I like the BFG for that particular reason. And I haven't ever had to use chains, honestly, but I still have a set with me. Tires, to me, are extremely important.
What's funny is I spent, I don't know, $900, almost $1,000 on my, just on one car, actually, my Honda Pilot, like 2 years ago. Because we had, when we first moved to Utah, of course, we're coming from California, brand new to snow. Nobody tells you that, you kind of prepare a little bit, because people tell you, oh yeah, it snows here, around December, January, February, March, for sure. And so, it's not been very bad. It's kind of been a good, last couple, 3-4 years, been okay. My first winter here was like the record breaking year. And then the next winter was a record breaking year again. I'm just like, baptism of fire. So that was kind of crazy for me to get really inundated with the snow life, hashtag snow life. Right. And so I had to learn. And so the next year I was like, okay, I'm going to really get some good tires on my car. And I spent a bunch of money on tires in my car, and then it didn't even snow that bad. And I didn't even need it that year. So I was like, all right, well, I'm grateful that I had the money first and I was ready, but I'm kind of sad that I didn't actually have, like, it didn't snow like it was. Anyway, so now it's been a couple years. So my tread is worn down a little bit, and there's supposed to be, isn't this winter supposed to be some predicted huge winter again, like some big winter, because we've had a couple of down years?
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be
like El Nino's kind
more
of come
the
through.
north. It's supposed to be a little bit heavier winter. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see. Maybe I'll get to use my tires that I spent all that money on.
Yeah, it's funny because
Yes, Rebecca, you got it right.
We've got to do new tires, but I've got those plastic strip. I don't know if you guys have played with those plastic strip snow tires or snow straps. So it's like
for self-recovery
like chains,
type,
but they're zip tie basically.
Okay.
Zip tie around the tire. I bought those to test them out. I haven't had a place where I could test them out yet, so they're just sitting there. But it's like the same thing as Paris. Like, you bought the tires hoping for a massive snow, so you'd be like, "How good are these tires?"
Yeah.
And I bought these. I'm like, "Oh, we'll have these in case." I'm hoping I can test them out to see if they're any good before something crazy happens. But I better just go get some chains, because there's been twice I had chains on my prior vehicle, my 4Runner. There were twice that I had to use chains when I was up in Park City.
Just say you live on a hill too.
And I live on a hill, but I've never had a problem with the snow and ice. Like,
Really?
Mike could comment a few things here, having recovery gear in your rig, and absolutely, I'm prepared for recovery, mainly for myself, but I rarely get stuck, so I find myself pulling out others. So having, as in recovery gears, toe strap. There are your typical toe strap you'll get at Walmart or your automotive parts store. It's just a strap. I've used those for years and years. I've gone through 2 or 3 of them, but there are specific straps for recovery, which are much better, much higher rated. But I wouldn't worry, and they're very expensive. They're a lot more expensive than just a typical strap. But having some shackles, soft shackles, tree straps, and really just having a strap where you can yank. You don't want a chain. Like, that's really old school. That's you don't want that for pulling someone out. Plus, it's extremely heavy and dangerous. But having some type of strap because you need some kinetic energy to be able to pull out in the snow. You got to have some movement. A static pull doesn't work very well. But having that I've pulled out people all the time over the winter, and I enjoy doing that. It's a lot of fun.
I was watching there's a YouTube channel of this guy who he pulls people out of precarious situations, whether they 4-wheeling and they went over the cliff, and he goes and rescues the car, whether it's in a river. But one I watched recently was where somebody drove a Suburban up into like a road that was kind of closed off, little back road, and they totally got stuck, and the belt even in the engine like snapped, and so they're like, their car was stuck, the belt was jacked, and so these guys went up there and they had to do just that. They actually drove back really fast and pulled it, like yanked it, and then let it go back, and like let that rocking motion kind of start to happen, and then pushed people out. So it was really interesting to watch that whole scenario as they got the Suburban out of this big old snowbank. It was kind of crazy to think about, like, man, the kind of materials that they used and the straps and the gear that they had. That's a whole nother level, because that's their job, but it was really cool to watch.
I had to assist a rescue of a truck. Well, I can't call it a truck, a Nissan Armada towing a trailer that got stuck in the snow. This is like 4 or 5 years ago, back when Idaho had this weird snow, freeze, thaw, and then snow again, and it actually wiped out some portions of the roads. And I had to help pull that truck, that I keep saying truck, that vehicle out, that was when I had my diesel. I miss that truck so much because it had the power to do those types of things. A huge trailer, a huge heavy car out
Mhm.
of a big snowbank, right?
Big tires.
So you need to know big tires, big meaty tires. You need to know what your vehicle can do, but also what your limitations are as well. And that's why I want to bring that up, is because like the person that they were trying to have rescue him before me had a little Ford Ranger, and it was like could not do anything, couldn't budge him at all. Right? You need to know what your vehicle can and can't do, what your payload capacity is, what your towing capacity is, like, and also know how to drive it well. Because I had to rescue the 4Runner or the Ford Ranger too, because they launched themselves into the other side of the street into the snowbank because they weren't assisting right. They actually put a tow strap on their ball on their tow
Yeah,
hitch.
don't do that. Don't do that.
Never ever do that. Yeah. Always take the hitch out, put the rope inside, and then
Use
put
the
the pin through the little loop on your rope.
Yeah, if you want to learn about towing and recovery, I really like the Matt's Off-Road and Recovery channel. They're
Yeah.
local here. They're down in Hurricane, Southern Utah, and
What's the name?
they teach you all about that kind of stuff, and that's a really good source. And there's other great channels for recovery out there too, and help you.
I think that's my
teach you
dad
what-
met that
what to
guy.
have. I've met him. Yeah, yeah, they're good dudes.
That's
And
cool.
we've got one here in the valley too. It's called Bent Off-Road Recovery, and they have a channel as well. And yeah, they're in American Fork, so they're close by. Very cool. Yeah. So yeah, vehicle preps. I drive a lot, so it makes a lot of sense for me to be prepared wherever I go, for myself and to help others. But we talk about Mike was getting into having a secondary heating system for your home, and that's that is very, very obviously really important. We talk about part of one thing I want to talk about is Biden's cold dark winter, right? I don't know that we've seen that yet, right? He's talked about that. He actually spoke about it recently he spoke to the press a couple weeks ago, and he mentioned that there was dark days ahead. That was his actual quote, dark days ahead. So that brought to mind his dark winter, which there's always a lot of talk about potential power outages, internet outages, which are all gonna wreak havoc, especially in the winter. If it's a summer, obviously it's a lot easier to deal with, but when it's cold and you don't have power and we can't heat the house, you got to have alternate ways of not just necessarily heating the entire house, but keeping the pipes from freezing, staying somewhat comfortable, at least in one room. Oh, what happened? Oh, there you go. And so, we could talk about some of those methods of how to do that. And we've talked about that in other podcasts as well. But
it's funny because, like, what does that really mean when we talk about Biden's cold dark winter? Like, what does that really mean?
Yeah, exactly. Nobody really knows, right?
And that was like, what does Biden do? What are we listening to Biden again for? Like, was he like in some White House? Was he just doing some kind of discussion or something?
Somewhere he just made a statement. He spoke to the press. I guess he's having some cancer treatments or something like that. He spoke to the press, and he mentioned that there's dark days ahead, and which made me think about his cold dark winter statement he made for a couple of years in a row. And I don't think we've actually seen that in particular, but I think we will at some point.
Interesting.
Well, what's interesting is there's talk right now that they're going to mess with a potential 1% interest rate, forced 1% interest rate. I don't know how real this is, but it's to heat up the markets. That would do a bull rush on stock markets that would just go nuts. Housing market changes would go nuts, right? But the reality is that's not likely to happen. And so what we have going on right now is we're going to see the continual inflation destroying pricing, destroying our spending. It's freezing all of our assets, really, because you can't afford to sell your house. You can't afford to sell anything and replace it because the new prices for replacement items are getting so crazy that like it's kind of like a winter on your finances, right? That's I think what I'm more concerned about, that and power outages, than anything else, because sustained power outages, people can't survive, especially during the winter. You're not going to have running water. You're not going to be able to. There's going to be issues galore if we have sustained power outages. I'm not as worried about that here in Utah right now because we supposedly have good energy. Where I live, it's mostly coal energy still. We've got some hydro. We've got actually a lot of natural gas.
Yeah.
And we've got some solar, but they're moving more to solar, and that's my big concern. And it's out of state. When you're playing the game with spotty energy production, it's going to get bad for everybody. I mean, that's one of the big problems in like Texas, right? Texas has too many houses on the grid, not enough energy production for the grid, and they're always running out of energy right now.
And too many data centers.
Yeah, and more data centers to come, right? And what are we doing in Utah? We're about to add a giant data center down in where?
Delta.
So it's just going to get nuts.
And not just a big one, the biggest one in the world.
Yeah. At the moment, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's been a big deal. There are data centers in California that are completed and sitting there, and the power company cannot provide power. And California in particular has had power issues for a long time because of their policies and so forth. Yes.
Okay, Shane's shirt. Pause for this.
All right.
There you go. David used a rock. I use a Glock. Thank you, J.R. Henry, for pointing that out.
Well, and Rebecca pointed that out too. So, but yeah, I saw this and I immediately bought it. As soon as I saw it, I went and ordered it. But so yeah, power is a big issue moving forward. Not just California, but really everywhere, especially with these data centers trying to suck up more and more power. And that's a whole nother topic of AI. And we've talked about that briefly on other shows, is that the AI is a bubble, man. It's a bubble. Be careful.
And top of that, add all the electric cars
exactly
on the grid.
Yeah,
especially in California where they have the rules now where you can't. They're trying to get everybody on electric cars in the next 5 to 10 years. It's ridiculous. And it's like you're going to create a demand that there's no supply for, and so now what are you going to do? And that's the challenge of it. But coming back to the immediate preparations that we can do in our to prepare for winter, first of all, there's some things you can do around the house. We talked about the yard and the pipes and other things like that, but to make sure you have somebody come out and check your furnace. You don't want to have that have gotten, piled up, who knows, but some little creature got in there and piled up a nest, and that furnace kicks on and starts a fire, so I mean, that's kind of a rare situation, but you definitely want to have somebody come out, make sure all the ducting is good. I mean, it's especially good for just making sure your house is. I actually have a home warranty, and I called them the other day and said, "Hey, do you guys do like checkups on heaters and air conditionings?" And they're like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Oh, well, that's kind of cool." So sometimes your home warranty can take care of that for you.
Okay, we got a good question in here from Rebecca. If you are expecting a semi-long power outage, what are some items you'd make sure you have on hand? Well, first, look at what your current needs are, and then put a plan together based on that. I'll give you the scenario for us, what our plan is and what we have ready to go. I'm a big propane guy. I love propane. It stores really well. So I have some small propane tanks and I have some large propane tanks. I have a multiplicity of buddy heaters that are indoor outdoor use. And so that is one of my primary heat source solutions. Knowing where my water shut on, shut off is, right? depending on how cold the interior of your home is going to get, determines if you turn the water all the way off or not, right? And if you can heat up enough space to keep the water running, because running water doesn't freeze, but it's got to be at volume enough to keep it going. You can keep water running like in a bathroom, have it trickling out all the time, as long as you got enough warmth to keep the temperatures from dropping too cold, right? But again, number one, first and foremost, heat source. Number two, right? Practice and see how long that heat source will actually serve that area. Plan on condensing everybody into a smaller space. Also, then what is your your heating solution for prepping food, right? If power's out, everybody that's using gas appliances is going to win, right? If it doesn't require electricity to start the stove, right? But if it requires electricity to start the stove, you're out of luck. And there are some stoves that don't need that. There are some stoves that do need that now, which I think is insane. The older the stove, the better. Also, potbelly stoves. I want in my next home, I want to have one of those. But I have just a standard fireplace, right? I don't have enough wood to last me more than a month. So that's a problem. But that's why I have so much propane. Backup batteries, great. Solar panels, great. If you have electronic or medical devices, you need that or a actual generator. The more tools you have at your disposal, the better off you're going to be. What else would you guys add to those?
I think the most cost effective for most people is to have a backup generator, just a gas generator. Just requires some maintenance, right? You got to store some gas. But for short term, which is what most of our emergencies or power outages have been short term, our power grid is really quite reliable. However, I'm told it's very dated. It's obviously it's vulnerable to being hacked. So I think we're going to see something. But and some of the comments here in the chat, of course, having battery bank. And you can have whole house, and that can get very expensive. Field Tech somehow got an amazing deal on a 5,000 watt solar generator. I don't know, how do you do that for that? But usually they're really quite expensive, especially if you're going to run your entire house. That's much more easily done with a gas generator. But there's only certain things you need to power in an outage, like your furnace. You really don't even need lights. You can use flashlights, right? Your refrigerator, right? You don't want your food to spoil, your freezer. Which can be pretty high drain, appliances. I have a 2,600 watt hour battery bank. It'll run my fridge for less than 24 hours, but not my fridge and my freezer. But a generator, yeah, I'll get 8 hours on a tank, or so at full load. So I think you've got to have some redundancy, multiple different types of systems.
Yeah.
And spoiling food's not the worst thing. The worst thing would be freezing pipes, and bursting pipes in your house. Wasted food, yeah, it's painful, but ultimately not terribly important.
A lot cheaper to recover from.
Exactly. But, another thought I had when you mentioned, everybody consolidate to one room, set up a tent in your house,
Mm-hmm.
in your living room, have everyone sleep in the tent with a heater in there. It's going to be much warmer. But then again, you've got to keep your house above freezing so the pipes don't freeze, know where to turn your water valve off, how to drain at least some of the water out of your pipes. And that's going to help minimize the damage, right? If it breaks, it breaks, but it's not going to flood your house if you turn it off within the house. So if it doesn't freeze, between the shutoff valve and the exterior, right? And to where you have no control, right? So yeah, look at those pipes like Scott mentioned earlier. Make sure they're well insulated there, and keep those areas open to inside heat, right? We have some cabinets where it's not very well heated in the house, where the pipes can tend to freeze into there. Really cold nights, we'll open those up, make sure that air is circulating, and let that water run. Higher water bill is going to be a lot better than the damage from frozen pipes as well. So letting water run will help keep it from freezing as well.
One of my things that I would love to do next big plans for future home, but like I would love to have a solar heater home where you actually have a solar, just glassed in
Greenhouse.
south facing greenhouse.
Yeah.
But whether it's used as a greenhouse or not, but it's used to heat the home, right? You'd want to have really good. You can use brick, but it's better to use like Adobe block, because then it'll hold the heat and disperse the heat longer for a longer duration. But there's techniques like that. They do use them in earth ships, which is phenomenal. If you ever want to get a completely prep ready home, those earth ships are amazing. There's a big, huge community in New Mexico. That's all it is. The other option is those rocket mass stoves, rocket mass heaters. Those are phenomenal. I don't know if anyone's looked into those. Similar technology, but you're basically using a rocket stove to turn into a mass heater that you can then use to heat a small home or smaller space. But it's really, really efficient, uses like 10% of the wood that you'd use for an actual stove. So it's a lot less wood. It recycles the smoke. It gets you, at the end of the day, it burns more smoke, more content out of the smoke. It has less fumes, exhaust out of the pipe, but it keeps the heat inside, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was just going to add that I got once I finally got my generators after years of being
Me bugging you.
counseled by the two, and I got that you can get a nice dual fuel generator over at Costco for $700 or $800. It's not, I mean, that's a chunk of change for sure, but it's a lot less expensive than the solar power banks. I got one of those. I think I purchased the Anchor Powerhouse, and with the panels and everything, I think it was $3,000 or $4,000. Anyways, that's a lot more than $700 or $800 at Costco. So I would just say start with something, even if it's just a single fuel, or try to get a dual fuel if you can, because that's going to be a little bit more advantageous. Because if you run out of gas, you'll have propane that you can use and still get some heat and some stuff going there. So the other thing, just remember about winter preps is that when you're working with small tools and things of that nature, they can get cold and your fingers can get cold. So you want to have some good gloves that are going to keep your fingers going good. So just make sure you have layers as well. Stay layered up so that you're not using as much of the heat. And I like the idea of having a tent and then just using body heat to keep things going the right direction, to keep warm. Everybody get in one room versus having, if you have a big house, don't have everybody spread out. Just keep everybody in the same room.
Yeah, another thing I'm prepared for is I've got a pigtail already prepared that I can wire into my furnace, where my furnace switches off. Most furnaces in Utah will have an actual light switch type switch to turn the furnace off. I can take that apart, wire in a plug, and plug that into my battery bank so I can power the furnace. It needs electricity to run the fan, the igniter, and so forth. And most likely I'm still going to have natural gas flowing, so I can get my furnace up and running pretty quickly. And a fan and igniters don't require a whole lot of electricity. It's going to run, my battery bank's going to run that for a couple of days very easily to keep the house warm. And again, that's my biggest concern is of course heat in the winter.
Well, heat and cooking. That's really the big two, right? Heat and cooking. And
I can cook outside too.
Fuel solutions or similar fuel solutions for the cooking. The other part is making sure you have access to the emergency services lines, right? So you got to keep your phones charged, your devices ready to go. But you can let all the other phones go and just have one running, right? You can simplify.
True.
If it's a long sustained just in your area, then it might be time to okay, let's relocate temporarily to one of our backup locations, right? With friends or family in another city, another county. If it's multiple counties wide and it's going to be long term, then you might look at relocating out of state, right? This goes back to planning. We have a resource at preppertalkradio.com on our resources page where you can actually download planning guides. I want you to think about backups on backups on backups. Do you have the fuels you need to keep warm? Do you have blankets? Do you have a tent? Do you have all these tools set up, right? backups on backups on backups. It goes to our book, The Ready Radius. Like, have what you need on hand and around you that can get you to another place that has more on hand and around you, right? That then gets you to a bigger, better place, right? But absolutely, absolutely, absolutely look at what you have, run the scenarios in your head, and say, okay, where do I have gaps? And fix those gaps.
Mhm.
Prioritize it based on temperatures. Do you have elderly? Do you have children in your group? Like, prioritize them, because they're going to be more susceptible to the weather, the temperatures, and the other problems that you're going to run into.
Especially if you have medical devices that you need to have power for, those are going to be critical. Breathing machines, CPAP machines. Just make sure you have power backups for all of those things, especially even if you have to have a separate power bank for those things. It's worth it to have those, and then try to do your best to get those charged and keep them charged as much as possible. Especially if you have like CPAP machines, you can kind of use those throughout the night, and then during the day, set up the solar panels and charge anything that you need.
It's funny. I have the Opus battery bank, and I have a CPAP, and I wanted to see how long it'd run. If I ran it with a humidifier, I'd get almost a full night's sleep before it would die and absorb the whole battery. But what's funny is you can actually turn off the humidity on your CPAPs. If you turn off the humidity, I could go 3.5 nights on that battery without recharging it. So practice with your stuff, test different ways to do things, see if there's a power save mode, like play around with your medical devices and see what other alternatives you have so that you can conserve the battery or the power in those cases.
Yeah, and this is a great point as well.
Yes.
Surge protector for your medical devices depends on the quality of battery bank you have. If it's a pure sine wave type inverter, because your electronics can get damaged. Yeah, that's a great point as well. And then Field Tac keeps posting here that go to the marketplace, go to your Craigslist. There are people who will give you insane deals on battery banks. Apparently, great place to I've had a couple for over 10 years that are still working, and I'm actually pretty surprised. But it's more about the charge discharge cycles than lifespan on lithium batteries. So they should still work even though they're 10 years old. So that's you should be able to get some good values that way.
One of our Facebook commenters just let us know multiple sturdy wives with hairy legs is an option. Whatever works, right?
Dogs to curl up with.
Earlier, right? Use body heat, huddle up. Rebecca said, use your dog, right? Huddle up, guys. Like, what's interesting is how many thousands of years did we live without power?
Yeah.
Right. And we were just fine. We, in today's society, we've forgotten how to live that way. We've gotten lazy because we've been so blessed.
But also the way we live, it's a more fragile lifestyle as well, right? Obviously, we're crammed together in communities, and we don't have wood stoves in our home. I have a gas fireplace, and that'll probably work in an outage. If not, I can hook it up to power and get the igniter going, get the fan going. But I grew up with fireplaces in my parents' homes. We could easily start a fire and make a huge difference. But we're definitely handicapped in the way we've been, the way we live. It's fragile. Definitely harder to live without power. So, but another comment on here was be careful with CO2. So,
go ahead, Paris.
Were you going to say something, Paris?
I was just going to say we take for granted all modern conveniences that we don't really think. And so that I think it almost gives us a little bit of a disadvantage even to think of scenarios, because we don't even know what scenarios are possible in a lot of cases because we've just never seen or heard of them. But, a couple of years ago when those big snowstorms came through, people got stuck in their car for hours on the highway. People were even found unalived in their cars because they didn't have food, they didn't have heat, they didn't have water. And it's not good. I remember even there was a bunch of people that were going through can't remember what was, it was all over the country. There was different huge snowstorms, but even through like Utah and California, there's that Donner Pass, and that was huge. The snow,
Yeah.
like people would get stuck in that, and snow just buried them. And so you got to have ways to get out, even if you have to have a shovel in your car to kind of dig yourself out of anything that might happen. So, I don't think that you could go too well. Obviously, there's things you can do too much, but at the same time, I'd rather be over prepared than under. And so that's something with a car, you can go heavy. We've talked about that several times, especially if you're in a car that has, you should, the heavier the stuff you have in the car, the more it grips to the ground. And so you might have better traction even in a snow or ice situation as well. So that's something to think about too. But it could definitely have your cars geared up. Like after your house is ready and you're prepared there, just make sure you have all that you need in a vehicle so that you don't get stuck. And if you do get stuck, that you have whatever it takes to kind of survive. I watching these rescue videos of people towing people out of places. You got to have some of those phone numbers on hand before you get into those situations. So I would suggest, make sure you have a power bank with you in your car, like a little small one of those power banks, so you could charge your phone at least once or twice. Make sure that you get, have a good set of phone numbers, emergency contact phone numbers that are in your phone. If not, then definitely have them on, in a piece in your folder. But I would definitely make sure that you have food, water, blankets, and good snow tires. You make sure you have the right, antifreeze, the right windshield wiper fluid in there, and make sure in snow areas, you got to have one of those devices where you can actually chip the ice off your windshield, because how long and that's not necessarily the survival thing, because you could just turn the heater on if you have time, but it's definitely a good idea to have as many tools as possible to free so you can have better vision as you're driving as well. So just some of my thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got, I guess, a few more things before we sign off here. I'll pause on my comment there. First of all, what I love about winter is the campfire therapy sessions, right? There is really something to be said about sitting around a fire and staring at a fire and getting that, we have a lack of sunlight, but the frequency of a fire can be, very therapeutic, very healing, I think. It's very calming, and I love sitting around a fire in winter. And then my other comment was going to be for, we are currently also in crypto winter. If anybody really knows what that is, it's just a season. It's a cycle that cryptocurrencies, when they go down, and this, I think, especially Bitcoin in this particular case, and from all the commentary I've heard, is that we are currently in a crypto winter. And I think the thing to apply with that is that it's not just a physical winter, right? It's the economy, and I think we all see that, right? I think we all, and I don't mean to speak for everybody, I think we've been in a recession for a number of years now, and it's going to really start showing its head, ugly head, and it's starting to show because of the government shutdown. Even though, dollars are still being spent like crazy, and the U.S. isn't going into debt in spite of the shutdown. And so I think I'd like to use this as a reminder of how bad it can get. That's me. I'm a doomsday prepper. You can call me that. So I like to think in worst case scenarios. Think about what could be the worst case, and what do I do to prepare myself. And part of that is having enough cash on hand, having my money out of the bank, put it in other resources instead of in the bank. And so I think that's just something to stay aware of, is that there are cycles, and there are ways to insulate yourself from those cycles.
Yeah,
I agree that we need to be wary of the economics that are happening, because there's a lot of things that are not looking very good on that home front. So just be watchful and be aware. If you've got a ton of money in the stock market and no money in cash or gold or silver, I would recommend a rebalancing. If you got a bunch of money in cash and you got a bunch of money in gold and silver, and you have a bunch of money in the stock market, that's fine. You'll probably be okay. But I wouldn't. I would just say be ready for economics to change. The world cycles. There's another guy that I follow that, quite frank, he talks about how the dollar is positioned, and it's been so strong for so long that to fail would be catastrophic. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly the point. He thinks that it's never going to fail because it's so strong, because it's so necessary, because everybody's so counting on it. And I'm like, that's a point of view for somebody who doesn't understand that the world elite is trying to just destroy the place. And everything is going to be okay. Everything's going to turn out all right. People are good. The world leaders are good. We all want the greater good. That's an outlook there. And for those of you who've been hanging around for any period of time, watching what's going on in the world, you realize that there's some things changing and there's some shifting going on right now, especially with our current administration. Even there's some shifting going on, and we'll see how long this government stays shut down. But that's not helpful. It's not helping the situation. Let's put it that way. And I don't mind about getting a $2,000 check, but I don't even know if that's going to come, for one. And two, and if it does come, like, just pay down the daggum debt. We're 38 trillion. Are you kidding me? Like,
the thing is, it's not going to make a dent. I'd rather take the cash myself.
And who do we? Every country in the world is in debt. Trillions. I think it's like $318 trillion.
Ridiculous.
We're the largest in debt at 38, right? But here's the thing. Who are we in debt to?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a question.
We're in debt to the global banking cabal. 4 people set that up. Read The Creature from Jekyll Island and understand this. That is what props the entire stock market. That is what props the international trade. It is funded by war. It is funded by the manipulating markets. Like, it's when that beast finally gets slain, it's not just going to affect the US, right? When the dollar gets disposed of, it's a global catastrophe. Like, it's not just a American catastrophe. It's a global catastrophe. And one of the funny things is, I think about, who the largest holder of $100 bills in the world is?
China.
It's outside of the United States.
Eurodollar, yeah.
The people who actually carry the most physical $100 bills, it's the cartels, it's Europe, and it's China. Those are the big 3. Interesting. They all have a huge stake in what's going on here in the United States. So when Red Dawn pops off because of the economy, you can all look at this moment and say, yeah, Scott was right. I'm not right very often, but that one feels eerily.
We might have a little bit better. We might want to make friends with the mafia and the cartels, because they might have the most resources at this point.
I don't think they'll survive in northern Utah very well.
Yeah, good point.
All right, final thoughts, friends.
Well, just remember that seasons. If you live in an area where the seasons change, make sure that you're changing as well, or you're accounting for those changes in the seasons and preparing and being ready for it. And winter is no joke, and we don't want to be caught. And there's actually scriptures that say that those who, in the end times, I think I actually was just reading Matthew the other day, and Matthew 24 talks about, I think that's where it was, it said something along the lines of, you don't want to have to flee in the winter, because it's not the time. It's not a good. There's just too many other elements that are coming after you. And so anybody who's familiar with the pioneer heritage of Utah knows that there was a huge group that left way too late in the season, and they got stuck in the winter. And they had some really, really serious things they had to come up against. So we don't want to mess around with the winter. We want to be ready for it as much as possible, and be able to survive through it. Those are my final thoughts.
Cool. I think my last thoughts is I'm always looking to the past to prepare for the future. Right? That's my motto. And our ancestors, they started preparing for winter as soon as winter was over. Right. As soon as spring came in, they got their gardens going and they were getting ready for the next winter. And I think that should be our mindset. That's the mindset I try to have. And so this shouldn't be anything new, to any of us. But it is. I mean, because again, we live in a very easy existence, right? We're very pampered, and that's going to be, I think ultimately our downfall. So if we start to prepare, if we prepare at every moment, then that's going to be our best chance for, and I hate to say it, for survival, because this at some point will be a game of survival. And if you have the eyes to see it, then I think, we're going to be okay.
Yeah, big time. We live in the most fragile time in the history of the world, in my opinion. I don't think we've ever had a situation where people have been weaker mentally, emotionally, and physically than they are now. And systems that we rely on have been more outside of our personal control than ever before.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so now is the most critical time in your life to be prepared, to get on top of things and be thinking, just like Shane said, planning for next winter now, right? Be doing everything you can now to be ready for the next 4 seasons, because the reality is if the water stops, it's typically 3 months before it's back, right? Like, and I'm talking like seasonal. You can last the season depending on where you live. In Utah, it's a 3-month deal. Like, if the water stops, there's a big drought. Like, you could be out of water for 3 months. So always be planning on having that water, that food, but then a way to take care of your necessities, medical, then your heat and warmth, and like prioritize medical first. But do what you can, get prepped, stay prepped, and stay ready-minded.
Awesome. Well, thanks guys for listening. You've been listening to Prepper Talk Radio, Radio for the Ready-Minded, the podcast for the prepared. We've been talking about winter preps. And so make sure you go to our good friends at survivalfrog.com. Use code PrepperTalk10 to get 10% off all of your orders for any heating devices or anything over there. They have great USB power packs as well. They have bivy blankets, bivy, sleeping bags, bunch of good stuff over there for you to be able to stock up on your winter preps. So go check them out, support the show, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care, guys.
See you guys.
Good night.